In big news today, Eskom and City Power have reached a 3.2 billion rand settlement over a disputed electricity bill that threatened Johannesburg's power supply. Now we take a closer look at what this agreement means for both City Power and Eskom and the wider municipal debt challenges facing the energy sector. For this conversation, we're joined by independent energy analyst Tshepo Kgadima. Good evening and welcome to the Power Business, Tshepo. What are some of the key factors that led to the 4.9 billion rand billing dispute between Eskom and City Power? How did the bill get to the size?
Well, good evening to Hill as well as to the listeners of Power FM and Power Business. The dispute so effectively arises out of incorrect, inaccurate billing system that is in place. So either for bulk users or even for individual users. The fundamental problem in this country, which it appears to elude both Eskom as well as City Powers to solve, is that of ensuring that they can have a metering system that is properly and accurately calibrated to measure the electrons so that when you get a bill, you can have the confidence of the accuracy of that billing. So the dispute arises out of the effective guesswork in the billing system. Now, the announcement, as much as it's been made, I would read it to mean that they just kicked the proverbial can down the road further and have not really tackled and resolved the fundamental issue, and that is of erroneous and incorrect billing. It should never have arisen in the first place, and I would not be surprised if a year from now we find ourselves in exactly, or these two entities, City Power as well as Eskom, find themselves in the same position whereby they are in dispute as to what bulk electricity was actually supplied, and also because City Power itself billing system, their metering system is not properly calibrated according to the international standard. They too are going to continue to experience customer default. The default rate in terms of payment will be higher. And this also has led to a situation where the electricity tariffs are now out of reach of many people. And so it's a multiplicity of problems. It's good that they have, for the time being, solved it, but one can only hope that they actually do not celebrate early, but they can now go to tackle the nub of the problem, that is of the incorrect billing system.
And what is the role of prepaid electricity in trying to address some of these billing issues?
Prepaid electricity is excellent for Eskom and for City Power because it gives them cash flows, right at the front end, and then the user pays upfront. So it is excellent from a cash flow point of view, but the user is disenfranchised because all the prepaid electricity users, they pay a substantially higher tariff than the postpaid, particularly corporate and commercial customers. Because also remember, the problem that I think needs to be addressed, but somehow Eskom seems to be failing to address, is that of moving away from what I dare say that is actually unconstitutional because it's unlawful discrimination of electricity users to the extent that certain corporates are paying below cost tariffs, whereas ordinary people are paying, 6.5 times more than what it costs to produce electricity and deliver it to them. And that is as a result. So Eskom has a thing, they're implementing a policy that I think was first introduced in 2008 by NERSA, which is the regulator, that is of negotiated pricing agreements. Those NPAs are part of the source of the electricity tariffs having skyrocketed so high, and also, of course, the incorrect billing system. So these are the issues that need to be resolved. But the announcement as made, apart from just saying the lights will remain on, meaning Eskom will continue to supply because there is a payment plan by City Power over a number of years, it means one other thing. Yes, customers, those that are still reliant on City Power and Eskom to get electricity, it means therefore that they will continue to receive that electricity, albeit at a higher price. But the other customers are going to continue to migrate off grid to the extent that today, well over 11,000 megawatts of electricity demand, which ordinarily would have been supplied by Eskom, either directly or through intermediaries such as City Power, that level of demand has migrated off grid, chiefly because of unreliable supply in the past and, of course, the higher tariffs. But now going forward, Eskom finds itself in a fortunate position that it should have been using the lower demand to be able to then return to service the 13,000 or so megawatts of capacity which they have effectively mothballed. They should be returning those power stations to service and also reducing the cost of electricity, because when they are producing electricity from baseload power stations, particularly coal and nuclear, their cost of generation can fall to as little as 32 cents a kilowatt hour. Therefore, you can reduce the tariffs in order for this economy to grow. Remember, the problem we have is that our economy is at 1% GDP growth.
There's a lot of debates about the energy mix that's required about South Africa. And this comes, of course, at a time when Eskom is got about 400 million rand in debt, and 107 million rand of that is municipal debt. The almost 5 billion rand in debt that City Power owned is a really small fraction of that. How do you see this municipal debt, the high municipal debt bill that Eskom is owed being resolved? Because there's been a number of plans by various ministers, the latest of being, of course, the electricity minister, Kgadima Ramokgopa. How do you foresee this actually being resolved?
Look, the so-called municipal debt, the solution is a standardized uniform tariff in this country of at least R1.22 per kilowatt hour plus VAT, because that is what was projected by the year 2012, that by the year 2025, electricity tariffs in line with inflation should now be at R1.22. That is the solution. We are seeing a municipal debt continuing to skyrocket for as long as the tariffs are out of kilter as they are, whereby some users are paying well in excess of 5 rand a kilowatt hour. There can be no solution to municipal debt. We'll see it continue to increase. But also the erroneous decisions that Eskom takes, for example, of wanting to spend a whopping 400 billion rand to build a 14,000 kilometer transmission grid, when this country currently has got sufficient capacity to supply, or rather to transmit on the existing transmission line, at least 54 gigawatt or 54,000 megawatts, and when the demand is well below 30,000 megawatts. So there can be no reason whatsoever to justify spending 400 billion rand to build, because the term, by the way, energy mix, it has got no practical application. Technically, it means nothing. It's just abstract. When they talk about energy mix, the politicians, it's because they had, just some people who wanted to coin this phrase, but it doesn't have any practical meaning or application. The same as with energy transition. So we need this country to move away from these terms that are phrased and coined by the Europeans, and to demonstrate the point of when they talk about the so-called energy mix, that in fact it is dangerous. We know of the recent blackout throughout Spain and Portugal, which was brought about by the so-called energy mix policies, whereby they introduced technologies that in any event had long been proven to not be suitable for grid transmission, and therefore they should be rooftop as we have in South Africa. And hence I'm saying 11,000 megawatts of demand has already migrated, and all of it is off-grid, is rooftop.
So what I'm
and
hearing
hence
you
we don't even have
saying,
load shedding.
Tshepo, just to come in there, is that we actually need cheaper electricity in order to reduce the municipal debt that they owe Eskom, except there is the issue of the billing systems not being able to keep up and not being able to address significant debt.
They must fix the billing system so that the customer can have confidence that the bill, as they receive it, it is accurate. They must drop the tariffs in order for this economy, the GDP, to grow by a factor of between 3 and 4% in order to create the all-important jobs, but at the same time ensure that South Africa can remain within the global economic competitiveness scales for as long as the tariffs are in tandem with Germany as well as the United States. There can be no legitimate expectation for the economy to grow. We need to have our tariffs to be on par with countries like Turkey, India, and China, and that means that the electricity tariffs, by and large, must be below 8 US cents a kilowatt hour. And I'm saying, based on the abundant coal resources we have, as well as nuclear power in this country, there should be no reason whatsoever for electricity tariffs to be above R1.22 a kilowatt hour. That way we will have a fighting chance to remain competitive in a global economy, and at the same time we will be able to eradicate energy poverty, which is so pervasive in this country.
All right, thank you very much. That's Tshepo Kgadima, an independent energy analyst, making the point that in order to address municipal debt, there needs to be a balanced approach to tariffs as well as the municipal revenue systems.